Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones. 2 hours to play with. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up as we are locked and loaded on Tri-X 57 for this, the 26th of June, 2025. As always, get social with me. It's pretty easy to do. Facebook, IG, and X. Log on to trix57.com. We're on their Facebook page as we speak. Myself, Rich Q on Q, X, and on IG, and of course, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. A lot of plays that I'll be posting on TikTok too going forward, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what we're looking to do over the next several weeks leading into the NFL football season. Speaking of which, Lloyd Vance at 5:05 is weekly spot. We will dissect the AFC East and start to take your comments, your questions, and thoughts and opinions, and we'll do that in 5 o'clock hour. Nick Costco is going to join me in about 15 or so minutes. We'll talk a little NBA draft with him. I also want to get into some college football with him as well and touch base on just my thoughts on the SEC. We've got our Q-Fecta picks as well. We've got what's trending. We also have the question of the day. But day one, I guess you can say the NBA draft has come and gone. Opening night, first night of the draft. And there were surprises. Yes, there were absolutely surprises last night when you talk about the NBA draft. I mean, we saw that everything kind of played to form early on, right? We knew it was going to be Cooper Flagg. We knew it was going to be Harper going second, respectively. And then at the third pick, now we threw out a couple names for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I told you yesterday and the day prior, listen, maybe a Trey Johnson. If they're looking to get up and down the floor, it's going to be Edgecombe. And a lot of people came on the air. They thought the Sixers were going to trade the pick. I said, I think they're going to keep the old adage. They're going to stick and pick. It's exactly what they did last night. And they go with the kid out of Baylor at number 3. I have no idea what the heck the Nets are thinking. I mean, I've got some thoughts on the Nets. And then, the other thing that was very interesting, to say the least, was the whole Ace Bailey conversation. And first of all, I'm watching this last night, and it's just oversaturated with like 1,000 talking heads on the mothership, which just annoyed the hell out of me. I don't know if it bothered you guys. It annoyed the hell out of me. It really did. I was just like, you got to be kidding me with this nonsense. I have no desire to watch this at all. But you have to, because you're doing your homework, you're doing your research, and it comes with the territory, as we like to say. But man, I'll tell you, you got an opportunity, and I'll get into Ace Bailey in a second. But the fact that, this kid just seems so disinterested. He really does. Like, I'm looking at him. I'm saying to myself, am I being overly critical? Am I reading the body language? Do I not like what's coming out of his mouth? Do I not like what's coming out of his mouth after Utah selected him? I mean, he seems very immature and very indifferent. And I'm not going to sit there and tell you, yeah, he's got bust written all over him. That's not where I'm going to go. But I think the teams that steered clear of him probably were smart. They were probably smart in that decision. And one of those teams, Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I mentioned the Nets. They went very guard-heavy, NBA record 5 first-round picks Wednesday night. And a lot of it, some people believe, kind of like a risky draft gamble. They went international with 3 point guards. You had the lottery pick, Igor Demine. They picked up a pretty good passing guard out of, the kid played, I guess you can say born in Russia, but out of BYU. That's the kid I'm talking about, Demine, and hopefully I pronounced his name right. That's their first lottery pick in 15 years. Then they went to freshmen. I mean, people were looking at those picks. People were looking at what Portland did, and they were kind of questioning what the heck the Portland Trailblazers were doing come NBA draft night. So everyone's got their thoughts. Everyone's going to try to come out with their grades. Everyone's going to try to push their narrative, their agenda, whatever. Right? I mean, I always say this, let it play out. You already knew Cooper Flagg is going to be that, transcendent player, right? So he goes to Dallas. Harper goes to the Spurs. Edgecombe goes to Philadelphia. Then, Charlotte, he can play right now, You're getting the kid out of Duke. He can play right now. Get him out there. And then the Jazz go with Ace Bailey, number 5. And I think, again, if you're talking about just overall skill and talent, his upside is significant, but he didn't work out for Utah either, right? I mean, when Ainge's kid, who's now at Utah, when they were speaking to him and trying to clock him, he was with Boston at the time. So I think he's going to have an opportunity to be an impact player on a so-so team. And maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he was looking for a spot where he can chuck it up 25, 30 times a night. And then my guy out of Texas, Trey Johnson, goes to Washington. They had the last option of a clear top 6 in this draft. They tried to get Bailey. They came close. It didn't work out. That's not a bad contingency plan. So again, if you're doing the mock grade, you kind of like it on face value with that A. But I thought overall it was a very bizarre night with the NBA draft, how the coverage was, how they handled certain things, a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of, I guess you can say, hot takes. It's the NBA draft. It's always going to be a crapshoot, just like the NFL draft, especially if you're talking about drafting a quarterback in the first 5, 6, 7 picks, because he's got to come in big time right away, and he's got to play. Now, the Trailblazers, with their pick of Coward from Washington State, a lot of people look at this kid. That was Memphis via Portland, looking at this kid like, okay, a late bloomer, right? Memphis, they grabbed him. Now you go to 16 with Portland by virtue of that, and they go with the center out of China. Now he's just 19 years of age, so you would think, okay, he's very young. He averaged 16 and 10. He played in the CBA in China. I didn't see him top 20. I didn't see him first round. It's probably a perplexing pick when it's all said and done. Again, you've got another big, you've got a swing. Can these guys play together? That's going to be the story in Portland. So some people were kind of questioning their pick. You saw Minnesota with the trade with the Pistons. They got the kid out of France, another center. Very, very young. Doesn't turn 19 until November. I mentioned Utah being a little active. We thought they were. The Nets, guard heavy. Washington with the 21st pick. That was also a trade via the Jazz. Again, this kid, Will Riley, don't know too much about him. I know there's always upside to every player. But again, he's got to fill out a little more. Good positional size at 6'9". Didn't really shoot particularly well from beyond the arc. So again, if you're thinking shooting is the necessity, you're probably not too high on Washington with this move. So as I mentioned, the draft is such a crapshoot, period, right? And I just think ultimately there are so many teams that we just don't know. Like, we just don't know. We want to look on face value and we want to say to ourselves, okay, is this kid going to make a difference? Is this kid going to make an impact? That's exactly what you want to know right away. Are they going to come in? Are they going to make an impact? Look, Dallas knows they did the easiest thing in the books. They drafted the best player in the draft, right? I mean, it's a good fit. He's a competitive guy. He wants to win. He's wired that way. He's ready to come in with a team that, if you think about it, is somewhat stacked to make a little bit of a run in the Western Conference. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you they're going to compete right away with OKC? Let it play out. But if Dallas can sign a good guard, they make the playoffs next season, then look, now you're talking about this team really on the rise. The way it's constructed with Davis and Lively and PJ Washington and a veteran Clay. And of course, even though you got that injury to Kyrie Irving, when he's on and when he's engaged and healthy, he's a hell of a player and he's locked under contract. Okay, so San Antonio. So I think the Spurs got better, right? They got better because we're talking about the ceiling at the end of the day. And they kind of got lucky and spiked up to that number 2 spot because they traded De'Aaron Fox at the deadline. So if you're looking at the Spurs, they're looking at this. You turn around. I think Harper is a high-level player. I think he's a high-level worker. I think he's perfect for the culture. And I think he fits the team and the team fits him. I really do. I really do. And I think, again, you talk about their second pick, and I know some people are looking at this and you're kind of like, why'd you go in that direction? I mean, look, I can't question what these guys are doing. I can't. Now, do you guys believe that Carter Bryant's going to come in right away and be a big time player? Right? I think, I had this kid right around the what, 20th, 25. So some people don't like to pick. Some don't. And I'm telling you right now, I think this team got better. I really do. And, it's not the problem is with a team like the Spurs, you have the retreads in the Eastern and Western Conference. And you have an opportunity where you're going to grow as an organization and a franchise. And it starts from the ownership group to the GM to the head coach. Of course, not having a guy like Pop anymore, that's going to hurt them going forward, right? But in the long term, you just got to move away from that. I mean, it just is what it is. It's the NBA. We know it's still a players' league. I mean, we do want to give credit to where credit is due by these head coaches. And again, I think, I think Harper, Bryant, I think they're going to fit. I think, again, it's just my opinion. I like what they're trying to build down there. I thought the Nets went too guard heavy, too much of international flavor. I think Utah might regret the fact that they drafted this kid Ace Bailey. I see too many red flags with him. I love the Trey Johnson move. I told you guys that already. And obviously Cooper Flagg is a nice hit. You get him in number one. He's the best player. I also thought that the Sixers, whether it was going to be Johnson or Edgecombe, that was kind of the guy we had on our board when we talked a little bit during the week. So it's always going to be hit or miss. It's always going to be hit or miss. It's just how life in the NBA is. All right, quick timeout. We're going to set it up. I see the comments coming in. Keep it locked in. 12 past 4 o'clock hour. Costco's going to join us on the other side. Talk a little NBA draft. Get a little Rutgers perspective with him. I also want to dive into a little SEC. Got some futures and odds. We want to lay them out as well. We're just cranking up on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q, powered by our good friends over at TriX57. TriX57.com will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Keep it locked in on a Thursday down the shore.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
What the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, welcome back. 14 past 4 o'clock hours. I mentioned we'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Very busy Thursday edition of Middays with Q. As always, get social with us on IG and, of course, the X platform. Very, very easy to do at TriX57, TriX57.com. We are joined with our good friend, Nick Costco, kind enough to join us for a couple moments. And, of course, does a great job. College sports on 3 Sports, play-by-play, RU Wrestling, Cal Live Sports as well. So I guess it's got a little Rutgers feel first and foremost. You got Harper, you got Bailey. I will tell you this. I see too many red flags with Ace, but I have no issue with Harper going number 2. We knew Flagg was going to go number 1. We'll get your thoughts on the Philadelphia 76ers. But how about your products out of Rutgers? Thoughts last night on the NBA draft, my friend?
Dylan Harper is the man, just to put it lightly, to put it simple. And obviously, Q, thanks for having me on again today. When I look at Dylan Harper, ready-made guy, I think we saw that pretty much all season long at Rutgers last year. He certainly wasn't the reason why that team was under 500 and missed the NCAA tournament. Neither was Ace Bailey for that matter. Of course, they lacked depth. The roster didn't quite fit. Obviously, Steve Peichel's coaching came into question last season for the first time in quite a bit. And so I could go on and on about the problems that Rutgers basketball had last year, but it certainly wasn't Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. Harper, number 2, great fit right there. I heard you in your opening monologue. I agree with you. Great culture fit, new era of the Spurs. I think Harper really fits the mold there. Comes from a great basketball family. His brother, Ron Harper Jr., I would imagine is going to be a full-time NBA player at some point. I know he bounces between the pros and, of course, the G League right now. But Dylan Harper, this is why Rutgers went after him. This is why he was the second best guy, arguably behind Cooper Flagg as a recruit, as an NBA draft prospect. Flagg, of course, is way up there. Harper just as good. I guess the only question for Harper and the Spurs is, he has another guard, and they already have guys like De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle. So you're like, okay, how does it exactly fit? How do they make that work on the court? But I think when you have a guy who is that good, you just make it work. You're going to figure it out. We know the league has gone small ball over the last 10 plus years. So, and you already have a freak in Wembanyama on the court anyway. As far as Ace Bailey is concerned, and as a Sixer fan, I was really hoping they actually would take him despite the quote unquote red flags. I think if you're going to give Ace Bailey a more of a red flag, Q, is that you don't know what you're going to get from him as far as his potential is concerned as a player. Everyone was throwing out like the Kevin Durant comparisons a few months ago. I thought that was a little absurd, to be honest with you, but the kid is an otherworldly player when he's consistent. There were some inconsistencies last year on the court. There was illness and injuries that hit Bailey and Harper, but when Ace Bailey was on last year, you're just like, oh, that guy might be the best player in all of college basketball, right, the number 1 pick. So go ahead. You feel free to interject on my little.
No. I listen. I appreciate everything you're saying, and I value your take and your opinion. It's not even pushback, really. It's just more or less, some of the comments coming out of this kid, his body language, the fact that he didn't want to work out for anyone. I mean, I listened to some of his comments afterwards. It's almost as though he's kind of resigned to the fact that he has to go to Utah. Ainge's son was with the Celtics, and that's kind of when they scouted him out, and they decided he saw enough to draft him to go to Utah. This is not Madden, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not
it's not NBA 2K, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. It is weird because this is not the personality that Ace Bailey showed off. And yes, I know there were reports from the scouting combine and like the pre-draft process where it's like, well, he's truly acting his age. Like he's truly 18 going on 19, however old he is. Like he's not even 20 yet. And it's like, oh, he's showing that level of maturity compared to Harper, who's the same age and looks like a 10-year vet already in terms of how he himself. I'm not going to go that far in saying like I wouldn't touch the guy because of that. It is a little curious though, because when you look at the anonymous scouts and what came out of the pre-draft process, those are the red flags you got. But then you look at the people that actually covered him, the Steve Politis and everybody else from NJ.com and around the Jersey area, college basketball area. It's different. There's a different perspective on it. So the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. I did find it curious that he didn't work out for anybody, which is weird. I think he was resigned to the fact that his management said, you're basically going to you're going to go top 3 regardless, or someone's going to come up and trade with Philadelphia and take you with the 3rd overall pick. Let's not worry about it. And maybe they were trying to shoehorn him into some sort of situation where obviously he didn't want to go to Utah, so it seems reportedly. I think Brooklyn was a place where he wanted to go, or at least his management wanted him to go. I think the whole problem was for a guy like Ace Bailey, who is, he's not a guard, he's not going to be facilitating the ball, but he was a guy at Rutgers, particularly when Harper did not play last year due to illness or injury. Bailey was the guy that the whole team went through, at least offensively, and you saw it in multiple games where he scored almost 40 points and single-handedly won these games for a really down Rutgers team last year, or basically a shell of a Rutgers team last year. So I get where that's coming from, but again, I think that does attribute to him being very young and I guess quote-unquote immature, and maybe you have to put more of the blame on his representatives at that point. I just think it's a talent that you really don't pass up on. Again, the Sixers went with VJ Edgecombe, which I'm sure we could talk about in a second, but I like that fit too. But to me, Bailey is still a talent that you still take your chance on. I think Utah is going to maybe get something out of him. Obviously, the Ainge influence will help, but maybe Utah will give him a chance to shine in a market that's not as.
He's probably going to get it with Utah and be a
Mhm.
stat patter. I text my buddy this last night. I said, "Oh wow, think about it. They're going to keep their pick, and that's what I thought they were going to stick and pick the Sixers." Now I thought
Mhm.
maybe Trey Johnson. I thought Edgecombe pretty much was going to be there. A lot of people were telling me, "No, you got to trade that pick. You got to trade that pick." Look, it's all contingent. Period. They weren't going to. You got Paul George coming out saying what he said on the podcast about Ace Bailey. That would have
Right.
kind of made for an awkward situation on the
Yeah,
floor at the same time.
not a great look. I mean,
No.
Paul George on his podcast, I don't think has been a good look for the Sixers last
Exactly,
year
right?
anyway.
And then you look at the way, my whole thing with the Sixers was, how are you drafting? Are you drafting
Yeah.
looking around the Eastern Conference saying it's wide open because of the injuries to Tatum and the injuries to Halliburton? Or are you drafting to build around Embiid and try to squeeze a little more blood out of a stone over the next several years? Now what are you going to do, right? You got turn around, you're going to sign and trade Grimes. You got to pay Grimes. I mean, you've got PG, you've got Maxey, you got Embiid, you got that bench. So
Yeah.
I like the move. I think they'll be able to get up and down the floor. You just got to have spacing on the floor, and they should be able to score now. It's another element. I have
I
no
think so.
issue with the pick. And I think a lot of people, I think they were more upset that they didn't trade the pick.
It's interesting. I would have. I don't think I would have traded it other than if you would have gotten a larger package. Like, yeah, you're going to trade down to what, 3? I think people were saying maybe trade down to maybe 6 or 7, stay within that good lottery range. And you had guys like Con Kneppel go next. Obviously, Bailey ended up dropping to 5, but Trey Johnson was obviously valued at number 6. That's where he fell. Jeremiah Fears, I believe, was the last one where they could have been like, okay, maybe we'll work some along those lines. As he fell to 7, but after that, it's like, I don't know what you're going to get out of it. Even out of the lottery teams, what are you really going to get? I think the furthest they were willing to drop Q was Trey Johnson, or let's just say they trade back to 6 and Ace Bailey still falls in their lap and they've already they've gotten some extra draft capital, maybe a player or some along those lines, even just cash for all we know. But the Sixers, to me, as you and I have been talking about for years coming from this area, it all hinges on Embiid. We know he's not going to be fully healthy for 82 games. Heck, if he as Paul George will go,
Sure.
as Maxey will go, and of course, even Jerry McCain. All those guys missed tremendous amounts of time last year. And when you look at the core they're going to bring back next year, yeah, if you're a Sixers fan, it's great to see Jared McCain, who could have been Rookie of the Year last year if he played a full season or at least been in consideration. You pair him with Maxey, that's a great backcourt, but now you're hinging your hopes on, can Embiid at least stay stable for 55, 60 games to help you get a top 3 seed in the East? And can Paul George pretty much actually play this year? And I think that's why if you were looking on, I guess, building around Embiid / the future, you take Ace Bailey. I think the VJ Edgecombe pick is more of, yeah, he's a guard, and it'll be interesting to see how he fits with McCain and Maxey, but it's a guy who maybe can contribute right now around with what they have, because as you mentioned before, the East could be wide open next year because the Knicks don't have a coach. Obviously, Halliburton's going to be hurt for the Pacers. Jason Tatum's hurt, and the Celtics seem to be reshaping the roster. Dame Lillard got hurt as well. So the East is more wide open than it was the last 2 years, but still, you're banking on a lot of healthy bodies for the Sixers, which, as we've seen based on history, hasn't really happened over the last decade.
No, it has not. Nick Costco kind enough to join us on a Thursday edition Middays with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Give him a follow at Nick Costco 59 College Sports for On3 Sports, play-by-play, RU Wrestling, Cal Live Sports as well. All right, switch gears for a couple of minutes before I let you get out of here. College football. I had a couple thoughts on, I'm an SEC guy. I had a couple thoughts on a couple of these teams.
You're not a Notre Dame guy. I
well, come on, I can't say. Listen, you know how I feel about Notre Dame. I mean, that's that was taught from my the old man many years ago. We don't know. Forget about. They're always on NBC. Get rid of Notre Dame. We don't have to worry about them anymore. I did listen to Rudy though. So some of the odds that have been laid out right now, as far as conference, having an opportunity to win the conference title coming out of the SEC. And I have a couple of teams I want to get your thoughts on. Obviously, Alabama, you look at them right off the top, and they're at plus 480. And I'm kind of throwing out, best case, worst case, right? Because they've got a brutal schedule. 12-0, that would be tough, right? And you and I call them swing games. They can be the difference from, say, like 12-0, 9-3, 8-4. You got the contest against Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. Now, if this team comes out and they stub their toe against FSU or Wisconsin before they even start their SEC slate, which I believe it's against Georgia on September 27th, I think we're more geared towards 9-3, 8-4. But how about their first couple games of the season, and how do you look at them from an odds standpoint?
Alabama's a sneaky pick, and I think they're getting more of they're becoming more of a popular pick to win the SEC in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer. Again, they have to figure out the quarterback battle as we move through the summer. Of course, it's still it's only June right now, so they're not going to be they're not going to pick one now. I think they'll pick one probably at the start of August. Florida State game is interesting because they have to go to Tallahassee, but otherwise, I think I would still favor Bama in that opening game. I know Tommy Castellanos, the new Florida State quarterback, the one who had a very roller coaster time with Boston College, was benched. He came out with some comments. He told our own On Three's Pete Nako. So he's like, yeah, I can't wait to. I'm paraphrasing here, and I advise you to go to on3.com to read it in full. Basically saying they're not going to stop me, and it's like, well, now you just gave the team formerly known as the Nick Sabans a lot of bulletin board material. So I don't think that was a good idea on his part. I would favor Alabama in that game. Florida State coming off a disastrous season, probably going to be better than 2-10 here this year, but I would still favor Bama. They got Louisiana Monroe after that. That should be a win. Wisconsin's coming to Tuscaloosa. They beat the dog out of them last season. So I like Wisconsin's improvements this year, Q, but going to Tuscaloosa, a different type of beast. So 3-0 start, and then you got the Georgia game, but then you got a little revenge game against Vanderbilt. Missouri's on the road, so that'll be an intriguing game, but they're probably not going to be as good as last year in my mind. The Tennessee game is interesting, but of course that's in Tuscaloosa, so it does help. At South Carolina towards the end of the year will be a little bit interesting because I feel like Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks always steal one of those games where it's like, now we can talk about them in the playoff again because it's Shane Beamer and South Carolina. Are they finally going to do it? Are they finally going to get over the hump? LSU, obviously, is always a tough game. Oklahoma, they'll be favored. Eastern Illinois at the end of the year, of course, the cupcake towards the end of the year. Then the Iron Bowl is always random, but I feel like Alabama is bound for probably around a 10-2 record this year, Q, and I think that would be good enough to at least make the playoff. Getting to the SEC championship, it's going to depend upon if they beat Georgia head-to-head, which is very key. I can't believe that game's in September, of course. And then it goes back to, all right, how good is Texas going to be? There are a lot of people's preseason pick to win the whole thing, not just the SEC, but the national championship. That'll depend on Arch Manning, but I think you have to worry about, all right, they don't play Texas this year, but if they beat Georgia head-to-head and they're 4-0 to start the year, and, it was different last year where it's like, oh, my God, they beat Georgia, but then they lost to Oklahoma and Vandy. So, but I think this year in year 2, I think Kalen DeBoer will have things a little bit straighter. And if they beat Georgia again this year, I think you're like, all right, this team is probably going to be bound to win 10, if not 11 games and be that other representative in the SEC opposite Texas for the championship.
Well, like I said, they stubbed their toe early against FSU or Wisconsin. You kind of throw it out the window. Auburn, their odds to win the conference title sit at plus 2,000. Now, again, could be that 10-2, 9-3, 6-6, 7-5. It's a log jam of really good teams in this conference. End of the day, it's all about, who you play when you beat them, right? And you talk about coaches in the NFL in the hot seat in college. I'm looking at Freeze right now, and you got a couple flip losses, right? You lose the kid, you lose the linebacker goes to Georgia, the wide receiver Carter goes to Florida State. So I think Freeze is on the hot seat, but I also look at, again, you can't lose games against Arkansas, Kentucky, Vandy. If you lose to Baylor, you lose both of your first SEC games on the road against Oklahoma, and you might have to check me, Texas A&M. I think they're going to be calling for his head. So is Auburn more of a 9-3 or 6-6 type of squad?
Probably more of a 6-6 squad in my mind. I don't think Freeze is necessarily going to be on it. Let me rephrase that. I don't think he should be on the hot seat in year 3, but we know the quick trigger in the SEC. We know that program at Auburn's very impatient because of the other school in state. And I'm double checking your math over here. They beat Texas A&M last year in that 4 overtime game, but yeah, losses to Vanderbilt last year. When Oklahoma was ranked, they lost. Missouri was a loss. So that, again, 2 close games, waxed by Georgia. So there were games last year, Q, where it's like if they just had a couple breaks go the other way, maybe they're not 5-7, maybe they're 7-5, maybe they're even 8-4. Who knows? So the problem is, I don't know how to measure this team until I actually see it. Hugh Freeze right now and Auburn are a 6 or 5 win team regularly. Okay, 6 wins in his first year, 5 last year, missed out on a bowl game. I think getting back to a bowl game this year pretty much saves his job. And it's like, all right, year 4, you better take a big jump, like 9 or 10 wins in 2026. So the way I look at him right now, you're probably going to see more of the same. Maybe not as middling as 6-6. Maybe you see a 7-5, maybe an 8-4, but I would lean towards more. They're going to be just above 500, scraping out a bowl game, and probably nowhere near the SEC title conversation this year.
All right, one more team before I let you get out of here. And a thought. De facto says, is Nick on the good side of the force with the green lightsaber? Yoda Mike.
I think I can change this. Actually,
This is what happened. They think this is the Death Star mic, and then the man says the microphones are in a standoff.
I can change this. I can go. I had Mace Windu for a second. I can go multicolored. All right, now we're on the same side.
Oh, right? I see there. Whoa, man!
Hey, look at I have a setting right here. It changes now. Look at that. Now you have all kinds of colors. So
yeah, they've got issues with the Death Star mic. They think it's behind a lot of my mushes. Lastly, Florida, best case 10-2, right? They kind of stayed above water. That was a tough schedule, probably arguably the toughest schedule in college football history.
It was, it was certainly extremely difficult last year.
Yeah, it was daunting. It was daunting. Yeah. But again, 10 wins against this, this type of slate that we've talked about. Or 6-6.
Man, that's another tough schedule for Florida, and it's all going to depend upon, is DJ Lagway the truth? Okay, freshman last year obviously came in not quite right away, and then was dinged up, missed some games. But Billy Napier has to get something going. You want to talk about a coach that's probably going to be on the hot seat? It's probably going to be Billy Napier. I know the administration has stood behind him, and they want to give him some time to really make sure that this thing is built right. And I like Billy Napier personally, but he's got to get it going, because Florida is just as impatient as Auburn right now, and especially since Florida had success in this century with 2 national titles with Urban Meyer, going back to the Tim Tebow days. Even as recently as Dan Mullen had this team in a great position towards almost making the playoff. I believe that was about 5 or 6 years ago at this point. LIU should be an automatic win on August 30th. They host South Florida, so looking at a 2-0 start right there with non-conference play. But at LSU, extremely tough game. I know some of your commenters are talking about Garrett Nussmeier going to be in the Heisman conversation this year.
So pull it up as we close it out. What do you think?
Yeah,
like 900 right now, right?
Yeah, if he's got a legitimate shot to win the Heisman, based on how he played last year. I'm talking about if this guy can reach that 4,000-yard mark, and I think he really can. I mean, Nussmeier is a really, really good quarterback. He could play himself into a first-round draft pick conversation. That's just the way it's going to go. But if Florida does go into LSU and then a week later goes into Miami and wins those games back-to-back, you're talking about 6-6 or 10-2. I will definitely lean toward. If they're 4-0, I'll be like, yeah, that team's going 10-2. Absolutely. Maybe they don't beat Texas even at home. Maybe they stub their toe right there, but they're at Texas A&M, tough game, but they host Mississippi State. Of course, they got Georgia in the cocktail party, but then at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, schedule is still difficult, not as difficult as last year, it seems like. Tennessee, wild card team, and I think I would favor Florida over Florida State. So maybe the games they trip up to are if they start 4-0, games I see them tripping up against, maybe I would say Georgia, Texas A&M, and then you throw in one of the last 3 conference games before Florida State. So maybe looking at a 9-3 campaign. I would say best case scenario 10-2, especially if Lagway is the real deal, and we're talking about getting him maybe some low key Heisman votes as well. I think at that point you're like, all right, 10-2 team, maybe trying to knock on the door of a playoff berth too.
Lastly, you look at the front runners for Heisman. I mean, 3 of 4 quarterbacks, are they not? I mean, you want to throw in the kid Smith, the wide receiver from Ohio State, but you got a quarterback from Clemson. Obviously, you got the kid from LSU, and you got Arch Manning.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think Arch Manning's everyone's preseason darling right now because of the hype train behind Arch Manning. So it is funny that we always get quarterbacks at this point every year. Manning, Nussmeier, Klubnik, who I think is not getting talked about enough for the season he had last year. And if he takes another step forward like he finally did last year, Clemson might be rolling through the ACC. Maybe even undefeated into the playoff at this point. You mentioned Jeremiah Smith, best receiver in college football, and yet we're going to see him at Ohio State again next year because he's still too young for the NFL. I guess some of the other guys, and again, they're quarterbacks, unfortunately, but Lenore Sellers is a popular name, the South Carolina quarterback, dual threat guy. Dante Moore took a year behind Dylan Gabriel last year after he transferred from UCLA to Oregon, so maybe he has a little juice going. Other than that, I mentioned Lagway before. Drew Aller should get a little buzz. The Penn State quarterback, Carson Beck, now over at Miami. Maybe he'll get a little buzz as well. remember we were talking about him. Maybe the Giants take him number 1 overall last year until, of course, he had a bit of a down year and, of course, the injury. But other than that, I mean, it is a lot of quarterbacks. Once again, I think keep your eye on as far as other skill guys. Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame running back this year, really, really effective. I'd watch out for Ryan Williams, who's the other star freshman wide receiver from Alabama in 2024. He should have another great year. And then as far as non-quarterbacks, Singleton and or Katron Allen, again, both back for Penn State this year. Of course, Penn State trying to run it back and win a national title, but they have a loaded skill group this year.
Listen, you got a good crop of quarterbacks. I don't know, again, how they'll equate on Sundays down the road, but you mentioned the kid from Clemson. If he has the type of season this season he had last season, 3,700 yards, close to 40 touchdowns, just 6 picks. I think he has 64 completion percentage. He's going to get buzz, man. And that typically happens, right? You go through these conferences, you win some of these games early, and then obviously you showcase either in the playoffs or the bowl game. So, all right, brother, I know I got to let you get out of here. You got anything on the high school front this weekend or anything wrestling wise?
Wrestling wise, looking to record new episode with Trent Hidley, my guy over from former NC State All-American, 2-time NCAA finalist. He just made the senior world team at 92 kilograms, winning Final X a couple weeks ago. So hopefully getting him on next week. As far as the high school stuff on Cape Atlantic Live, just gearing for high school football. We do have a new episode up today, though, on Cape Atlantic Live. New EHT basketball coach, Joe Kessler, a legend in Jersey basketball coaching ranks. He was over at Shawnee for nearly 4 years, one of the all-time winningest coaches in state history and an absolute basketball legend. So he's taking over my alma mater, so I'm excited about that. Our new episode is up right now on the YouTube channel, so go check that out as well.
All right. Always appreciate you, bro. We'll do it again next week. Great insight as always. Have a good Thursday. Enjoy your weekend. We'll do it again next week. Always appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Rich. Thank you, man.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Nick Costco, always gives the great insight and information. And as far as the microphones, I don't know what to tell you on that. Like, there's no good versus evil. We're not trying to triumph over each other. We're just trying to give you guys some good insight. That's it. I got a lot of comments I got to rip through, by the way. And some of you guys are angry already on a Thursday. I'm a little surprised by this. Vince chimes in, without Kyrie, the Mavs are irrelevant, sir. They have no guards. Yeah, he's injured once he gets back. Spurs lost a generational coach, not easily replaced. That's true. But again, we know the NBA is a players' league, right? Vince chimes in, yeah, we got some commercials running during the breaks, Vince. Of course we do. De facto, again, is Edgecombe going to put us in the mix for a deep run? I don't see it. We just got drafted. If you don't like the pick, that's fine. Duck Holiday, that's a great, by the way, I'm all for that name right now. Welcome to the show, Duck Holiday. Enough with the damage control. Say what it is. A bad freaking pick. Are we talking about Edgecombe here? You guys don't. So Sixers fans, that's what I'm understanding. Sixers fans are not liking this pick. Did you want them to draft Ace Bailey and his red flags? Is that what you wanted? Or did you want them to trade the pick? I told you, Trey Johnson was... That was where my line of thinking was. Trey Johnson. That was my line of thinking. And I think the kid's going to be a player. I think he's going to be a stud. But you also have to remember something. Everything, if you're a Sixers fan, everything is contingent upon what? It's all contingent upon Joel Embiid's health. Now, they can come out and say they believe he's going to be healthy for training camp. They can talk about his recovery. They can talk about long-term, having the right pieces in place. It doesn't matter until I see it. Until I see this man plays 65 plus games at a high level and doesn't get injured early in the season, load management, plays back-to-backs, leads them into the playoffs, then maybe I'll quiet down a little bit. I'll pipe down. I'll really shut up when they eventually get to an Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't believe that's ever going to happen. I just don't. So like you're putting all your eggs in one basket. That's what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. And you're talking about a big man who had arthroscopic surgery on his left knee in April. So whether he's on track to be right around the time training camp opens in late September, you turn around, you flip it, the season's right there. So the Sixers right now, you've got Maxey. You got a promising first rounder in McCain, right? You got an unrestricted free agent, Grimes, which you're going to have to sign in their backcourt. We already talked about this. Then you talk a little bit about the vets, the PGs, DMBs. You talk about the bench, and now you talk about Edgecombe. I think right now he was the favorite at 3. And Ace Bailey canceled his scheduled workout with the Sixers. Now, again, Morey came out and said that because of his refusal to work out in Philly, it didn't factor into the club's draft decision. I think that's a load. I think the fact that Paul George made the comments that he did, I don't think you wanted anything to do with this kid. That's all. I mean, I'm just, again, I just think they wanted to just avoid it. Avoid it. I need Lloyd Vance to come in with a TIE fighter. The madman. That's Bunker Boys. Lloyd is humanitarian. He will get the mics to cooperate and function properly. How about Harper's mom? Very beautiful woman. I'm sure there were elevated amount of Google searches last night. Yeah, she stole the show last night. You know, she pretty much coached him in high school. You know that, right? She was a player. VJ has megas. Yes, he does. He's got what we like to call the leaping ability. Sarge chimes in. Q, I don't know who doesn't like the pick. I think the kid's a professional kid. I think he's well-spoken. I think he's going to contribute to the Sixers right away. That's talking about Edgecombe. Again. I always say, let it play out. We want to make these rash, quick, grading. And by the way, I'm watching this last night, the theatrics, and you've got ESPN, you've got the mothership with a camera on Harper and Bailey. And what do you got? The Monica McNutt. And I'm not trying to call Monica McNutt out, but what I'm saying is this. You're talking about their suits and how they're dressed. Really? You got an opportunity to interview Ace Bailey. You say, hey, Ace, by the way, yeah, you look dapper. How come no pre-draft workouts? I mean, then you got, solitary Stephen A. Smith up there again, trying to sit and rationalize, some of these picks. And then for some reason, trying to scream the loudest about things he really doesn't even, care about. I mean, it's unbelievable. Bobby Marks is a basketball guy. That's the guy you should have up there, not solitary Stephen A. Seriously. Q at 4 means ball 316 is in the building. 442, right? 442. Non-room reading comment. Phillies can't score in Texas. They can't. They got blanked again. I'll get to the Phillies a little bit too in some baseball. Mets win. Yanks win. Finally, Soto shows up. But no, the Phillies have dropped 2 or 3, and they're trying to avoid the sweep tonight in Texas. This, you got these cameras on these guys, man. And I'm telling you, ask the friggin' questions. Like, ask the questions. Why, who gave this kid the advice to not show up and do these pre-draft workouts? Just ask the question. I don't care about his suit. I don't care about the way he's dressed. Talk about that. Again, you want to talk about that after the fact. Don't tell me that before. We want to know what the buzz was. I mean, you've got Bobby Marks. He's a good basketball guy. He should be up there. Not screaming Stephen A., not solitary. I mean, seriously. It's utterly ridiculous, some of the coverage. I mean, it's just laughable. Absolutely laughable. Maddie in Delaware chimes in. Q, I have no idea what the hell the Nets are doing. And I'm probably your rarest Nets fan that chimes in. I couldn't tell you. They went ridiculous. They felt international. I mean, they felt international last night. Guard heavy, very guard heavy. I don't know what, you got 5 first-round draft picks. You had an NBA record, 5 first-round draft picks. And every pick seems to be a gamble. Every pick. Every single solitary pick seems to be a gamble with the Nets. I mean, you're not competing against a big brother. You're not going to compete against the Knicks. You're not even going to compete in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I'm not really feeling it, to be honest with you. TJ chimes in from Jackson. Q, you mentioned Cooper Flagg, and I don't know why your listeners are disagreeing with you. I think he's going to be an outstanding fit with the Mavericks. He's going to be a player. Period. He's going to be a player. Boy, you got a little ice cream? What'd you do? You do a little, you do a cone? You do a cup? You do toppings. We do sprinkles. Uh, this is a point our guy Jack City was making. No one cares about this X and O. I gotta know what you're going though. Are you going? What is it? The frosted kind of. Do they still make those with the flavored color? The sugar cones. Remember the sugar cones, right? You guys selling them pan out in the NBA. Uh, I mean, that's not necessary. That's like saying, Penn State running backs. Hello, that's not really fair. Tell me you went to Mr. Softy on Hannaffield Road. Oh, cups always. Oh, you got, yeah. I mean, if you got the little people, you got to go cups. I mean, you give them a cone, they're going to go nuts. Are you kidding me? Oh, I can just imagine. You go cone and you let them sit in the car. You're driving home, or you sit down and you kind of perch yourself right there. That's again, that's what you have to do. But if you're going cone outside, you can't get in the car. That's flipping and flopping and dripping all over the place. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Vanilla wafers cone with chocolate sprinkles. Not a bad way to go. Not a bad way to go. You got to throw some M&Ms, maybe a little gummy bears in there as well. I mean, you got to mix it up a little bit, right? Especially if you have a sweet tooth. Kevin and Jackson chimes in. Q, I have no idea what Sixers fans are whining about today. They got a star player. Kid's going to be an ascending transitional player. Give him some time. He'll match up well with Maxey. Okay. Kev, I appreciate the enthusiasm. You're a Sixers fan. Let's pump the brakes and say star right away. I mean, these guys haven't even stepped out on an NBA floor. And again, we want to turn around and say they're stars, right? I mean, we have to just kind of pump the brakes on that. Tom at Summers Point chimes in. Q, were you a cone or are you a cup guy? I go either way. Believe it or not, like even the sweets and the junk food, I steer clear of it because I'm so like picky with what I eat. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to indulge, I would probably go cup, and then we're probably going to do a little mint chocolate chip. And we can, well, there's a couple ways you can go. Oh, here's one for you guys. I'm gonna peel the curtain back for you. If you're gonna talk ice cream for a moment before we take a break, if you're gonna talk ice cream for a moment, so you can go a little mint chocolate chip. You can go vanilla. That's fine. You can even go chocolate, but mint chocolate chip, that's the go-to. And you know what you do? You sprinkle. You just kind of sprinkle a little peach schnapps right on there. And let it just kind of sit and marinate in the bowl. Then you want to throw some sprinkles on there, have at it. Now, I'll tell you something else. The best is when you get some Eggos and you throw those suckers in the oven, a little butter, flip them around, keep them crisp, right? Keep them crisp, period. Keep them crisp. And then you do a little waffles and ice cream. Next on rotation, hit the cherries. Oh, that's not bad. You have to. You never had peach schnapps? Come on. Cup Q, don't want to mess up those new collared shirts you've been rocking. No, that's not true. A cone is a cone. Don't get me wrong. I like to eat, don't get me wrong, but it's just, you diet, you try to, trim down a little bit. You have to have discipline de facto. That's what life is all about. In moderation, you have to be disciplined. As much as you want to have those chips and Doritos and those munchies at night and that ice cream at night, sometimes you just have to have the discipline. And by the way, I've also switched with the fresh roasted coffee. So I'm still drinking the fresh roasted coffee, but what I'm trying to do now, no cream. And it just kind of makes the coffee. And I love my fresh roasted, don't get me wrong, but no cream in the coffee. I'm not confident with that, to be quite honest with you. I need a little bit of flavor, a little bit. Ice cream egg rolls from Izakaya, formerly at Borgata, were amazing. Yeah, I wonder how those Brussels sprouts were. They were probably high in sodium, were they not? Any thoughts on Kellerman getting back into calling fights? I'm actually going to talk a little boxing tomorrow. And good for Max. Absolutely. That's great. Him and Lampley on some of these calls. Why not? I mean, HBO boxing. I mean, think about it. Top Rank maybe now coming back with ESPN. You got so many different platforms out there. There's a ton a ton. I think Kellerman got screwed from ESPN because Stephen A. Smith didn't like him. And the knock on Max Kellerman, and people forget, Max Kellerman used to host a boxing show many, many, many years ago. He was a teenager and he was doing it on public access TV. And Mike Tyson caught wind of it, and was very complimentary at the time. I mean, old boxing guys don't like Max because they think he's arrogant. But if you actually spoke to Max, and I've spoken to Max Kellerman, I've interviewed him a couple times talking about fights. He's extremely knowledgeable. I just think it's demeanor, it's his personality, and quite frankly, I liked him calling the fights, and I liked him on TV doing shows. I really did. It's just you partner up with a guy like Stephen A. Smith, and at the end of the day, if you ever go against a guy like solitary Stephen A., you're going to lose. And that's unfortunately what happened. But it's good. Listen, Lampley, Max, these guys, Jim Lampley is a legendary. You talk about, the classy guys, Lampley, Bernstein, God rest his soul, Nicky Charles, who used to come on my show religiously, started his career, cut his teeth with CNN, then turned into a big boxing guy, passed away many, many years ago from cancer. Such a gentleman, astute, Bert Sugar, old historian guys. These guys, they were really good when HBO, when it was in the heyday of the fight game. But now, because you have so many different platforms, it does to some extent, I think, get a little saturated. And, there's not a lot of seats out there, to be quite honest. These guys are not going to get up from their seats, and rightfully so. I don't blame them. So I think, a guy like Max is extremely knowledgeable and he's got an opinion, which I respect, and he rubs people the wrong way, which I like even more about him. But I think that clash, let's think about this. You had all that stuff going on with ESPN, and then Stephen A. is getting paid. He's the face of the mothership, and he's, pushing all the buttons, and moving people out here and there because that's what, power does. And then now you've got the situation with Shannon Sharp, who kind of took that hiatus because of everything that's been transpiring in his personal life. He's done at ESPN. So is it possible now this maybe opens back up the door for a guy like, Max Kellerman? I mean, you just never know. It is a very cynical business, to be quite honest with you. And again, you should be able to freely have an opinion on the air. And if that doesn't jive with, your broadcast partner or the person that you're interviewing, as long as it's done in a respectful fashion, you can get heated and you can disagree and you can call each other out. But, it's such a cutthroat business. Nobody wants to get forced out, whether it's TV or radio. Trust me. And I've been on that end. It's very petty. There's jealousy, and people just conjure up nonsense just to conjure up nonsense, just because they don't like you. They don't like the way you look, the way you sound, if you have an opinion, if you're right, the way you present yourself, if you push back. That's the issue with a network like ESPN. It's gone now. It's gone too corporate / too woke / too political / too, BS. It's not sports driven. It's let me scream the loudest because that means I'm right. Nobody wants to watch that nonsense. They don't. So when you have a guy like Kellerman, that's really smart, and that kind of scares people, because some people think they're the smartest in the room, and then a cat walks through the door and he's smarter than all these guys put together. That kind of rubs people the wrong way. And yeah, to Man's point, they did him dirty. They absolutely did him dirty. And the radio business is the same way. Look what's going on with XM. They're getting rid of channels. They're getting rid of shows. They're bumping people. They're putting other guys syndicated. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can get paid, you can get paid. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And you don't want to have a certain reputation that follows you around for your career. That's not a good thing, because people take notice of it. They just don't. They won't put up with that. They just, They will not put up with that. And I think when you make a lot of money and you're the shot caller, it's a lot easier to go to the corporate head and say, get rid of this guy. I don't like him because his opinion doesn't jive with mine. And I think that was the issue with Max. And it's good to see him back calling the fights. Absolutely. All right, quick timeout. Fast approaching 5 o'clock. Lloyd Vance at 5:05. We are breaking down the AFC East today. We've got some thoughts on that. We'll also give you the latest, some breaking news coming down in the NFL. We'll get you caught up to speed on that. I have some carryover from the list comment yesterday on Sirianni, the head coaches. I got about 15 or so I want to read, get your thoughts as well. Fast approaching the 5 o'clock hour, almost 16 of books. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. As a reminder, this is Middays with Q, powered by our wonderful friends over at TriX57. Get social with us. Follow along, TriX57 on Facebook, IG, and X. You can log on to TriX57.com, and you can follow myself on IG and X at RichQ on Q. And, of course, TikTok, RichQ on the mic. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side, and we will close out hour number 1. And, of course, we'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this Thursday.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, fast approaching the 5 o'clock hour. So we mentioned AFC flyer on him. They got to deal with the PR hit, but also the fact that he's going to be out 10 games. I believe he will get signed, to be quite honest. I believe he will get signed. And I know his agent came out, but he's suspended for the first 10 weeks of the 2025 regular season. Cody chimes in, Q, there's absolutely no way I would want my team to take a flyer on him whatsoever. Sal, who's a big Ravens fan, Q, I understand all the accusations, but again, innocent until proven guilty. This is an all-time great kicker. I'm still aggravated that the Ravens released him. Yeah, but they had no choice. They had no choice. Come on, you guys are better than that. Like, it's to this day, I still don't even know why Deshaun Watson's in the league. I really don't. All the stuff that came down with Deshaun Watson, and yet he gets a $320 million contract. Come on. It's just, some of that stuff does not sit well with me. It really doesn't. There will be a team that maybe is desperate late in the season and they have some issues. I mean, what do we always say when we're watching these games on Sundays? Like kickers. It's always kickers. Like they're missing field goals. They're missing extra points. You know, what's going on with the kickers in the NFL? Point being is, if you're trying to get into the playoffs or make a push towards the postseason or win the division, and you see a guy like Justin Tucker, is going to be available, someone is probably going to take a flyer on him. And they realize the season's pretty much in week 11, 12. Yeah, why not? Right? It's just, it is what it is. Been noticing many of this year's NFL rookies have received fully guaranteed contracts. Is this something or nah? No. You know, these rooks get guaranteed contracts. They do. We've seen it. You know, we always talk about the rookies that are unsigned, and we talked about their guaranteed monies. I know where you're going with this too, right? I get it. Everyone is going to have their opinion on this collusion or not to collude. I know that a couple NFL guys some NFL writers that I know, beat guys, were trying to get some more comments from the NFL. They won't. We already talked a little bit about this. They're not going to come out and say anything. I think Pablo Torre mentioned that the NFL media accounts are monitoring him now. Look, rookie contracts for drafted players are generally 4 years. First round picks have that additional 5th-year team option, right? Undrafted rookies typically get 2 to 3 year deals. That's just how it is. Now, the rookies, the problem is you got limited negotiation, right? Because everything's based, I guess you call it, on that wage scale. So not every rook is going to get paid what they believe they're going to be worth. But ultimately, you play through that contract, you play well, you cash in, and you're good to go. Steve in North Jersey chimes in. Q, do you really think Shannon Sharp's done on TV? Yes. Yeah. Well, hold on. ESPN. Yes. Yeah. Yep. You got a $50 million lawsuit bombshell. He's not coming back. He's got a $50 million rape lawsuit. It's sorry. It's just, the network's not going to take a flyer on him. They're just not. And he decided, the PR move was to take a step back. I know he does the pod, he does his YouTube channel. He makes pretty good money doing that as well. But TV was where he was the most recognizable. And I like Shannon Sharp. I loved him when he was with the NFL Today on CBS, the pregame. And they shuffled everyone after that when Marino got let go too. But, these lawsuits come out and networks don't want to touch them. They don't, because there's speculation that, okay, as we get closer to the NFL season, are we going to see him again? And I think at this point, it's safe to say no. Remember, who owns ESPN? I mean, Disney's not going to allow that. They're just not under that umbrella. It's just, and you get that stuff on tape, not a good look, right? And I know he's denied the allegations, and he's talked about, the plaintiffs being financially motivated. I think they offered $10 million to settle the case with the accuser, and that was a no-go. So, hey, man, you just listen. There's certain behavior and mannerisms that should not be tolerated, period. Does a guy like Tucker deserve another shot in the NFL? I don't think so, but he's going to get one. I know I mentioned the Ruggs thing a couple weeks ago. Young kid, first time accident or second time accident, it led to loss of life. Tucker, this dude, just like Watson, it's almost like repeat offender. Can't help themselves. And I don't want those guys near my locker room. I don't want those guys to have anything to do with my franchise. I just don't. I really don't. This is not a surprise. By the way, speaking of the NFL, and we'll get Lloyd in a couple moments, I saw that the Bucks gave Todd Bowles and Jason Licht multi-year contract extensions. Everyone thought that Bowles couldn't coach, but this is what happens when you win games and you win divisions in weak divisions, because I still maintain that the NFC South is a weak division along with the AFC South. Now we're going to take a look at the AFC East in a moment. We'll do that on the other side. Quick timeout. We'll punch up Lloyd. We got a lot of comments coming in. Keep it locked in. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on a very busy Thursday edition of Middays with Q.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Oh, let me punch up Lloyd. That's my mistake. So hold on a second, Lloyd. Oh, look at that. First time doing the video right here. Hold on, hold on. I'm going to get hammered right now. I know what's going to happen. Guys are going to hammer me. They're going to say, we can't believe you got Lloyd offline. Hold on, relax. We're going to fix it. This is what happens. Hang tight, Lloyd. There's absolutely no way I would not punch up my guy, Lloyd Vance. I got hammered for this the other day. I got absolutely hammered for this the other day when we were trying to figure out what the heck was going on with, who did I have on? They think I got rid of Lloyd too early. Who else did I get rid of too early the other day where everyone kind of got all bent out of shape? I don't know. I mean, there he is, my guy, Lloyd Vance. I would never I would never do anything to disrupt the apple cart with my guy, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game. What's going on, brother?
Not too much, Q, man. Lots still going around the league, getting ready for training camp.
Yeah, we're going to get to the AFC East. We just mentioned, I guess it's really not breaking news per se, but the fact that Justin Tucker suspended for the first 10 games of the NFL season. I mentioned this right before you came on. You might have heard it. You know, even though it's 10 games, let's just say week 11, 12, 13, maybe there's a team that's poised to make a run in the playoffs and they have a need for a kicker. Can you see a scenario where he gets signed late?
Ooh, Q. I talked about this on my show with Kevin Mitchell because he's down in that Baltimore area, and,
Mm.
and it's like I just don't know if he's ever going to play. To be honest with you, Q, I just think teams are going to kind of step away from this ugly situation that he's involved in. Yes, it's alleged, and you have the whole Deshaun Watson similarities thing here, and I don't think the Ravens want him on their team. Now, we did see last year, though, there Brandon McManus, he was suspended early, cut by Washington, and then he got a second chance late in the season, did pretty well for the Green Bay Packers. So never say never, but I think, with all these open cases against Justin Tucker, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Tampa Bay extending their head coach and their GM respectively. Listen, you and I have had our thoughts and opinions over Todd Bowles, but it looks like he's found that right fit for him in Tampa in a weak division. He's got some players. They again should be the odds-on favorite to win the NFC South. So to me, that's a no-brainer. I think that's more rewarding the GM and the head coach for what they've been able to do.
Yeah, the Glazer family that owns the Bucks, they've been happy with Bowles and Jason liked as well about what they've been doing in terms of building the team. Obviously, they won with Tom Brady more than a few years ago, but they've played pretty well under Baker Mayfield and the team. Let's face it, they're in a weak division, Q, so they're always going to have their opportunities. It's good to see Bowles get rewarded, because he's been on the hot seat in the past.
Yeah, he has been listen, I mean, it seems everywhere he's gone, he's been on the hot seat. All right, AFC East, 2025 win totals. Let's lay them out. The Bills sitting at 11.5, Miami 8.5, New England 7.5. The Jets, one of the lowest win totals along with the Giants, sitting at 5.5. I think I posed this question. We'll get to the Bills. We'll start with the Bills. 11.5. We know that you got an MVP in Josh Allen. They're a very good football team. They can play both sides of the ball. They've got an explosive offense. We know about their defense. We do question at times the head coach. But with all that being said, they're going to get tested right off the bat to start the NFL season come 2025, come September, because they're going to open at home against the Ravens. But then they've got games where Jets, Dolphins, Saints, Pats, Falcons, Panthers, if they get through the Ravens, they could potentially be a 6-1, 7-0 team before they have to host Kansas City in November. They went with corner in the draft. They fixed their tackle position. They went a little defense as well in rounds 3 and 4. But as I mentioned, you have an MVP player. You got an all-time great quarterback in Josh Allen. We know they can run the football. They've got wideouts. Is 11.5 too high, knowing that, hey, you're also going to feast on the AFC East, and that should be 6 wins right there? Or do you think they're going to go under that win total or over?
And the thing is, Q, they're only facing 6 teams that made the playoffs. And you talk about the weakness in the rest of this division. We'll get to other teams, but they're at Carolina week 8, winnable game. Um, they played the Patriots twice. At Cleveland, week 16, they get the Jets, who we know are a mess. So, I think they can get to that 11.5. And the key thing you talked about, 13-4 last year, beat Denver in the wild card round, beat Baltimore in the divisional round. It's like, okay, maybe this is the time, but they got to get over the hump. They lose to Kansas City again and in the conference championship game. I know Terry Paguli has been very patient with Brandon being the general manager there, Sean McDermott, the head coach. But you have to say, okay, eventually they're going to have to, are they going to get over the hump with this group, or are they going to the window closing? So, scored a lot of points last year, one of the best in the NFL, almost 31 points a game. Defensively, McDermott's group's got to do a better job. They allowed almost 22. So, you know, they bring in new people like Joey Bosa. We'll see how much he has left in the tank. Joshua Palmer, and you have to look at the playmakers on his team. They're bringing in Palmer and some other guys, but is Keon Coleman, Elijah enough? So yeah, I think they'll get there, but still some question marks on them.
Yeah, I posed that question: are they the best team in the AFC heading in to the 2025 season? Right, until we see them beat the Chiefs and make that deep run, I think it's it's a fair question to ask. I think they're uberly talented. I'm actually going to play the over when it comes to their wins this year, because I also think they're going to feast on a weak division. Miami 8.5. If it was 8, I'd be maybe inclined to go over. The quarterback to me is always going to be an issue. As talented as he is, he's injury prone, he's concussion prone. That just worries me, right? You're paying him a lot of money, and he's just been banged up over the last couple of years. I will ask you this: do you believe the head coach is on the hot seat in Miami?
That I'm looking at my notes. That was like one of the things I highlighted right away. Josh McDaniels, 22-17. Yes, he has 2 playoff appearances, but no wins in the playoffs. This team, they play very well early and they beat up on lesser opponents, but is he the coach to give her over the hump? So Stephen Ross, the owner, is going to be looking at him. Chris Greer, the general manager, and we'll see if McDaniel's able to, you know, weather the storm. We'll put it that way, because this team, as you said, as Tua goes, they're going to go. So 2 of those concussion issues are going to be firmly out there. They had a lot of people leave in the offseason. This roster's been kind of turnover. Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, Isaiah Wynn, Javon Holland. I could go on and on. So they're going to have at least 20 new players on this team. We'll see if they're able to get it rolling in the right direction. But I think 8.5 is too high. I think they're going to kind of struggle this season.
They signed Keenan Allen. You got Hill. You got Waddle. They give the Dolphins really good outside receivers. I think the slot is kind of a question. You got a quarterback that wants to get rid of the ball quickly on those slots. That's something to watch offensively. Some of these guys are getting a little older. I'm just, again, it's all about the quarterback. 9 wins. I'm laying the under, man. And I'll tell you what, if they miss the playoffs and they have a bad season and Tua gets hurt again, I can see them making a change when it comes to the head coach. I really could.
I do, and Stephen Ross has been kind of reactionary in the past, and I could see this happening. And McDaniel was supposed to be that superstar McVay mind coming there, and he has all the toys in offense with Tariq and the rest of the guys, but it's just not working. So we'll see if I'm wrong, but I think they're not going to hit that total either.
New England 7.5. We knew it was a disaster with Mayo. We talked about that roster being constructed, the coaching staff. I pounded that under last year. Different animal, second year. You got a young quarterback back there in May. You got some expectations right now that maybe this team is kind of ascending. They're on the rise. And that's the beauty when you have a young quarterback. You get him in there. He played 13 games. At times, he looked very capable. He was the 3rd overall pick by the Pats. You bring in your guys as far as your coaching staff, right? Guys that know the Patriot way, quote, we always talk about it ad nauseum. I just don't know offensively if they're going to score a lot of points, right? Diggs is banged up. You got Hollins back there. You got Douglas. You got Williams. Their running backs don't really blow me away. And then that puts a lot more pressure on a young quarterback. I think the defense can keep them in some games. 7.5. I would be a little more inclined to say maybe 6 or 7 wins. And then maybe next year they kind of start to figure it out and be a little more competitive.
It's going to be interesting to see how quickly Mike Vrabel can turn around this team. Obviously, Gerard Mayo, they said he was a players coach, maybe too close to the players and not a leader of men, and they got rid of him. So they're changing direction, bringing in Vrabel, all that experience coming from the Tennessee Titans, and a former Patriot bringing that way that Robert Kraft likes. He's also bringing Josh McDaniels to kind of fix his offense. Offense was terrible last year, only scored about 17 points per game. Defensively, Mayo's group was not getting it done either, allowing almost 25. So a lot to clean up. Much like Miami, they have a lot of people they've turned around on this roster. So they have a good building block with May at the strong rookie season. We'll see if he's able to keep moving forward. And Stephon Diggs, he's already got his mess, so we'll see how that works out. But they signed him. They got Mac Hollins and some other playmakers. Um, I, I I don't think they get to 7.5. I last year 4-win team. I say maybe a little better, maybe a 6-win team. And Vrabel he starts building things, but it's going to take some time.
Jets, lastly, 5.5. Is it possible? I think Fields is going to have a really nice season, but they're not going to win a lot of games. I mean, their defense, I think, is very suspect and overrated, to be quite honest. And then offensively, there's not. They've got playmakers, right? They've got a good wide receiver. They got a running back if he can stay healthy. The tight end is not a bad tight end, but ultimately, what are we going to get from Justin Fields, right? You got Brees Hall, you got Garrett Wilson, you got Lazard still back there. You got Taylor, and you got a couple of other backup tight ends. They'll play that base 4-3. I just don't see them competing, to be quite honest, in the AFC East. I think New England's going to be better than them. Miami's finds a way to beat them, and then Buffalo's kind of own them. They open up the season against Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Tampa, Miami, Dallas, Denver, and upstart Carolina team in Cincinnati. First eight weeks of the season, if this team is 3-4, 4-3, the Jet fan would absolutely love it. But I think they're trending more to like a 2-6 start.
Yeah, here's going to be interesting for them. The 5-win team last year, and Woody Johnson, their owner's kind of getting a little antsy. They bring in Darren Malgi at the GM position, and Aaron Glenn's coming from Detroit, trying to bring that winning atmosphere. But there's a lot to clean up with this roster, as you were kind of alluding to. Offensively, only scoring about 20 points per game. Defensively, which is their calling card. I mean, their defense is loaded with first rounders and high draft picks, but they allowed almost 24 points per game in Division 2 and 4. Everybody's going to say yes, see different, but it's going to take some time, and we'll see, how Aaron Glenn's able to turn this thing around. 5.5. I think it's right around that number, Q. I mean, uh, maybe I'll say they get to 6, but it may be a push. But this schedule is tough as well, and Buffalo's going to, they're going to feast on them.
De facto says Jets in the over, Fields to the rescue. So he's the starter, right? He's week 1 starter. He appears to be the team's starter going forward. If he struggles a little bit, do you believe, what was it, a 2-year contract, they'll have patience with him, or do you think they'll go to a guy like Tyrod Taylor?
No, I think Tyrod Taylor's going to be on the bench. He's the veteran backup. He's been on a lot of teams now, kind of a journeyman. They want to see what Fields can do, and Aaron Glenn got to see him a lot when he was with Chicago, and he was playing against with the Lions, so he knows what he can do. He's a dynamic player that can run the football, dual threat. They're probably going to bring, with Tanner Engelstrand, that playbook, like a read option, and I think he's going to have some good numbers. So, fantasy football players may be happy with him, but I think this team's going to be behind in a lot of games.
Vince chimes in, if the Bills don't make the Super Bowl, McDermott has to get fired, right? I mean, is it boom or bust for the Bills this year with McDermott?
I just think the Pegula is they believe in him, and they're probably going to give him a lot of opportunities now. If it was anybody else, they'd probably say, "Okay, enough's enough." But I he turned that thing around in Buffalo, and small market, and him and Josh Allen, they'll probably give him another shot. So I don't think it's boom or bust this season.
Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, every Mondays, 8 to 9. Also joins me on Middays with Q, as well as BYP. By the way, just some quick breaking baseball news. Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Wander Franco is found guilty of sexual abuse of a minor in the DR for an illegal sexual relationship with a 14-year-old girl when he was 21. He received a 2-year prison sentence, according to Juan Torrio Rocio, who is a lawyer that works for ESPN, also ESPN Deportes. So that's listen, stick them behind bars. Absolutely, stick them behind bars. So we believe the Bills are the clear-cut favorite. I mean, you can see the disparity when we look at it: 12 wins, 9 wins, 8 wins, 6 wins. Can they get two teams coming out of the playoffs? Two playoff teams. I mean, who's more likely to make a push for the playoffs, New England or Miami?
Q, I'd probably say I'll go with the Patriots. But maybe they didn't get that 7th spot be in contention for it. You always kind of see a team kind of jump from the pack, and you're like, oh man, I did not see that coming. And with Vrabel coming there to clean a lot of things up, I like their quarterback situation actually better. Drake May is a young guy they can build around, and the thing is with Tua, you just don't know about his injuries, and is he going to survive? Because those last couple concussions have been very scary, and you're just like, all right, is he going to continue playing? And then they have Zach Wilson as their backup.
Joe D on X chiming in. Q, always love when you have Lloyd on talking a little football. I know he's in Eagles country. What does he think of the list that has no respect for Nick Sirianni? Everyone's getting involved with these head coaching and these lists, and you guys know how I feel about these lists. I mean, every commenter who's chimed in live on the show has basically said the same thing. You think Jalen Hurts is walking around thinking about a list from Chris Sims? You think Nick Sirianni's walking around that he's like number 8 out of top 10 head coaches in the NFL? I mean, you got a quarterback and a head coach that just won a Super Bowl. Who cares? But if you look at, do you put him in the top echelon of head coaches right now in the NFL?
Of course, you got to put him, top 5 or so, because he just won a Super Bowl. As you said, he's been to 2 in the last 3 years. And yes, we don't like histrionics and all that, but his teams, they believe in him, and he's the leader of the Eagles, and the Eagles look strong again. I don't think they're going anywhere. So you definitely have to give him his props. And like you were kind of talking about, these lists, an editor or producer, whoever asked him to put a list together, put a little controversy on there, and it gives talking points until you can get to training camp. But some of them are ridiculous, where they put, like Hurts way around number 10, and Sirianni as high as he is as well. So yeah, I don't believe in some of these lists.
Somebody sent this to me the other day. It was comparing Hurts with Lawrence after 66 games, 60 plus. So Hurts has close to 18,000 yards, Lawrence 15,000. Hurts has 140 total touchdowns. Lawrence has 83. Hurts has 55 turnovers. Lawrence has 68. And completion percentage, winning percentage, pardon me. Jalen Hurts is at 69% and Trevor Lawrence is at 37. Now, again, I think sometimes it's apples and oranges when you look at, man on man, and you look at every single type of, position on the field on offense and defense. But it also goes to the adage that everyone was so bent out of shape when the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, and they said, you're doing such a disservice to Carson Wentz. This kid's going to be a backup. And I remember you and I spoke about it, and we're like, hey, they don't trust Carson Wentz. He's injury prone. They don't like the attitude, and all I heard was there's no way you're going to get rid of Carson Wentz and you're going to have this kid start. Well, long and behold, long story short, they did. They have. And now you got a quarterback that's a Super Bowl MVP that's been to 2 Super Bowls in the past 3 years, and he's a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you can compare him to whomever, but Lawrence obviously has drastically underachieved than Jalen Hurts, and there is always going to be that bias where he was drafted and the situation came in. People talked about him being, a gadget guy when he came in, but he's improved as a passer, and
Yeah.
yes, he's not going to be throw you on a stat sheet like a Stafford or Herbert that laid up the box score and all that stuff. But in terms of that factor in his running and the tush push and his leadership, just he won the Super Bowl. So when you go out and get it done, and he outplayed Patrick Mahomes this Super Bowl and possibly the last. So you have to put him in that same conversation, as Josh Allen, who's an MVP, Lamar's a two-time MVP. Yeah, Jalen Hurts, it may not be statistically the way everybody wants it, but the guy's a winner.
Yeah. Kevin chimes in. Q, there was an article on the network, as you say, that mentioned that the Giants should trade Thibodeau because they've got an influx of defensive ends. I didn't read that, so I can't really speak, I guess, because talking about drafting Carter and having Burns. I think Thibodeau is just Kevin's a big time Giant fan, by the way. I think Thibodeau is just a player that hasn't lived up to his potential where they drafted him. I think he is a guy that almost gets to the quarterback, if that makes sense. I still think he's a player. He can play. Uh, I'm not going to suggest right away that the Giants pull the trigger, and because you got 3 starting edge rushers for 2 spots, Carter's going to be that guy. You're paying Burns a lot of money. Thibodeau's got 2 years left on his rookie contract. He's probably going to want an extension after this season. I mean, you look at that price point with starting edge rushers, right? Unless he knows he's starting, he's getting paid. If not, then yeah, he's probably going to want out. I don't know. I think sometimes these are knee-jerk reactions because they look at a player and they look where he was drafted and maybe they say, you know what, he was a 5th overall pick a couple years ago, right? So can he play? I think he can play, but I guess they want, 15 sacks.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to make that trade. A lot of trades happen around the draft. You see things, movement then, and they're going to build around that defensive line. They're going to kind of look at what the Eagles did in terms of getting pressure. Of course, with Carter coming, and obviously Thibodeau has been kind of an underachiever based on where he was drafted, as you were saying, but they're going to give him more opportunity to get out there, and we know this coaching staff with the Giants is desperate, so
Yeah.
they're looking for something, and maybe the defense can become a calling card again.
The offense certainly is it. All right, my friend, what do you have for Monday's show? What do you got planned?
We'll just keep going around the league, doing our previews, and getting everybody ready for training camp, and hopefully, guys will keep their nose clean. There's always a time of year where you see guys kind of for training camp get in some trouble or something. I know the teams can't wait for their guys to get in, and we'll just, keep our previews going and just see where it's at.
All right. I always appreciate you jumping on board. We'll do it again next Tuesday and Thursday. We start to bleed in July. We'll stockpile these divisions. We'll talk some more storylines and some betting odds as well. And then we'll get into our predictions for divisional winners, playoffs, and the Super Bowl. And we typically do that right before week 1 at Lloyd Vance. Give him a follow. And of course, a host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game. You hear him every Monday night live from 8 to 9. Always appreciate a couple moments, pal. Thank you. All right, there you have it. Good stuff from Lloyd Vance. Quick timeout. We'll reset the table. A lot of comments coming in. We will get to them on the other side. I promise we'll take up to 6.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 5:30. We'll take you up to 6. Good stuff from Lloyd. Who is throwing shots at my quarterback? I want names. Q Sunshine is on the mend, getting his confidence back. We saw it late last year. We're going to see it again. Now back to San Antonio. What the hell are they doing? They seem to just be trying to duplicate the OKC roster, but they're missing SGA. Are we saying that Fox and Wembley can be as good as SGA? I don't think anyone's saying that. I think they'd be foolish to say that. SGA is SGA. I'm still. Am I wrong to say I am still? I don't have a definitive take yet on Wembley. Is that? Am I allowed to have that opinion? Like I think he's a really good player. I think he's a young kid, obviously, and he's only going to get better. He's going to fill out a little more. You're averaging 21, 22, 24, what have you. I'm not going to put him in that category of SGA. I'm not going to do that. I think what San Antonio, they're trying to find their identity. They've always had the big three for all those years under Pop, even when they had Robinson, and then they had Duncan, and then it was Duncan and Parker and Ginobili. That's very hard to duplicate. So to answer your question, I don't think they're trying to duplicate anything, and I don't think they're trying to tell you or me or anyone that their players match up against said players like on OKC. It's a totally different animal. It's apples and oranges. And to your Trevor Lawrence point, I think Trevor Lawrence, there's a handful of quarterbacks that, however you slice and dice it, going into the season, they are really going to be under the microscope. Trevor Lawrence is one of those quarterbacks. He's one of those quarterbacks. Jared Goff is one of those quarterbacks. Burrow is not, because we already know what he's done. Allen's not. Jackson's not. Hurts not. Dak Prescott. I think this is a big year for Dak Prescott. I think there's a lot of pressure on some of those guys that I've just mentioned. There's not going to be pressure on Daniels. There's not going to be pressure on Hurts. Williams is young. Love is still there. McCarthy with J.J. McCarthy with the Vikings. We're going to see what he can do. Every team, we always gravitate. We're always talking. We're fixated. We're focused on the quarterback. But there's a handful of quarterbacks. 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks this year. I think it could be make or break years. I think Kyler Murray, my dark horse MVP candidate, I think he's going to be under a microscope. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be under a microscope. I really do. I think Jared Goff's going to be one of those guys. Purdy signing that contract, coming off that injury. He's going to be physical tools. Trevor Lawrence has the physical tools. He's had them since high school, since college. It's just, when are you going to put it together? And I know I've said this in nauseum, but man, I'm telling you, I think the loss of Evan Ingram is going to hurt him and his confidence, because that was his safety valve. They're going to have to be a run-first type of team. And if they pick up 4 or 5s and they can be creative on second and third, they can be creative in second and short, then I think now you entrust him to sling it. He's got an arm. He's a talented quarterback, but he was also the top overall pick a couple years ago. And we typically say, and the Giants did this with Daniel Jones, is this the year Daniel Jones takes the next step? Okay, so we had that conversation in year number 2, because when we talk about young quarterbacks, we want to see the progression from year number 1 and year number 2, they burst on the scene, or they have that they mature as a signal caller. And finally, they, quote, get it. And hey, man, this is why we drafted this guy, top 5. This is going to be Trevor Lawrence's 5th NFL season. Are you going to do Trevor Lawrence that lit the world on fire his second year, came back down to life year number 3, and then was injured and inconsistent last season? And I like Trevor Lawrence. I've been guilty of being too pro Trevor Lawrence. And a lot of people don't like Trevor Lawrence, and they look at him and they think he's overrated. The proof's going to be in the pudding when the season starts, but this is a monster year for him. It's a big year for the other quarterbacks that I mentioned as well. It really is. Can Detroit, can they win with Jared Goff? Can they put it all together? And that's great. They win their 13, 14 games. You get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and then you give up 45 to Washington. There's pressure on Jared Goff this season, without a doubt. And Jared Goff had a great season. He had a great season, but what are we going to remember? He had smoke and mirrors, 300 yards, but he had 3 picks in the playoff game. And it was almost like a hit or miss. Jared Goff, his last 4 or 5 games last season, he really played well. That crazy game against Buffalo, they had opportunities to win. He threw 5 touchdown passes. He threw 3 against Chicago, 3 against the 49ers. He came back down to earth a little bit in a game where they just absolutely dominated Minnesota to get home field advantage. You get a bye, and then you give up 45 to Washington. You want to blame the defense, fine, but he had 3 picks in that game. He had 3 picks, and he took a couple bad sacks. He had some misreads. So pressure's on him. And everyone was like, oh, they stunned. I mean, we called it. We thought we thought Washington was not only going to cover, but win that game outright. So there's pressure on Jared Goff. There's going to be pressure on Purdy. There's going to be pressure on Trevor Lawrence, especially in a division that, if you believe the AFC South is a weak division, then there's more pressure on Jacksonville and Lawrence to put it together and kind of dethrone the Houston Texans. I don't know how good they're going to be. I don't really have a feel for Jacksonville. I have a feel for those other quarterbacks. As I alluded to, best be known, they're going to be under a microscope. Tommy in Orlando chimes in, Q, do you like the move by the Bucks, Inc. and Bowles and the GM? Listen, he's been a product of having a good team, good pros, a good coaching staff. He's a defensive-minded guy. They also play in somewhat of a weak division, but you got to give credit where credit is due, right? Because they have drafted a bunch of really good key players, right? They won the Super Bowl a couple years ago with Tom Brady. They drafted Mike Evans. They drafted itself has been very consistent. They've been on par, sticking with their game plan, their process, their belief. And here's a head coach now that was also, he's a really good defensive coordinator. Really, really good defensive coordinator. And to be honest, he's found his niche. He's found his niche, right? Because he was with the Jets. It didn't work out. He was 24-40. Now with Tampa Bay, he's playing winning football. Obviously, you see it in his record overall, 53-65 as a head coach. He's had a lot of success in Tampa Bay. You have a GM and a head coach that trust each other. That's what you want. That's what you want. And they've had players that were cast-offs, i.e. a Baker Mayfield, that's starting to put together a really nice career. So to answer your question, it's a reward move, if you will. It's a reward move and good. Good for them. Good for them. All right, 5:40. Another timeout. We got the Q-Fecta coming up. Let me actually get you caught up to speed on some baseball scores. WNBA, we spit the bit last night. Top of the first, Mariners and Twins are scoreless. Dodgers up on the Rockies 3-1. Looks like that's going to go to the bottom of the ninth, or maybe that game's already final. Marlins over the Giants 8-5. You got the Braves and the Mets. The Mets finally woke up. Their bats came alive last night, 7-3. That's only their second win in their last 12. Soto, that's why you're paying this guy. Couple home runs. I know it's not been a very good month for the Mets, but there's plenty of time to turn it around. So the Mets and the Braves will go at it 7-10. I mentioned the Phillies. Well, if you are a Phillies fan, here's the good news. The Phillies actually scored a run, but the Phillies lost to Houston 2-1. They got swept. I mean, their offense has just been bad the last couple of games. I mean, you get blanked 1-0, you get blanked 2-0, and then you come back and you score 1 run today. And they lost that game in the, what was it? Was it in ninth? No, that was Cam Smith hit that RBI single in the eighth. So the Phils basically just got swept by the Houston Astros. They always have a problem out there in Texas. This is just right? Struck out in the ninth. Wow. 37 and 34 team right now. They stink on the road. They're 1 game over 500 on the road. They open up a 3-game set starting tomorrow night against the Braves. So that will have, NL East implications right now because the Mets won. Now all of a sudden, boom, it's a log jam. It's the Mets and the Phillies atop the NL East. The Braves are 9 back. We don't know if they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. If they go out and they sweep the Phillies and now all of a sudden they're 6 back and they win a couple more games, 5, 4.5 back, they might just stand pat. They might be buyers instead of sellers. But the Phillies have issues right now offensively. They've got some weak spots. They've got some holes. And just they're a feast or famine team at times. They really are. They are a feast or famine team. Castellanos, what was he? 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for 4. I mean, this guy's been quiet. He had that home run against the Mets after he got benched. He hasn't done much since. The Phillies right now, I would be a little worried if I was a Phillies fan, to be quite honest with you, because you can't waste outings. You can't waste outings when you're sending your horses on the hill. You can't. So you had Suarez, Wheeler, Sanchez. Sanchez goes 6. He allows 5 hits, 1 earned run, strikes out 11, and the offense can't back him. The offense can't back him. I mean, that's embarrassing. You're wasting great outings from these guys. You're talking about your horses, and you're not getting it done. 5:43, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. We got the Q-Fecta. We'll wrap it up on a Thursday.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 5:45 on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at Trix57. We are live Monday to Friday, not only on Trix57.com, but also on my YouTube channel, on their Facebook page, and our X account as well. It's pretty easy to follow at Trix57.com, Facebook, IG, and X. And you can also log on to the website, Trix57.com, for local news, weather, and sports. Give them a follow on Facebook, like, comment, and share. You can follow me on IG and X at RichQ on Q, and TikTok, RichQ on the mic. All right, let me get to the Q-Fecta. We'll close out with a couple comments before we get out of here on a Thursday. John Bueller is going to join us tomorrow in the 5 o'clock hour from Fansided. So talk a little baseball with him. Let me get to the picks. WNBA across the board. We're going to do 2 plays tonight. We got the Fever laying 5.5 against the Sparks. The Aces laying 7.5 against the Mystics. And obviously, it was earlier today I plugged this in for the Phillies and the Astros. So we're going to take the L right there. For some inexplicable reason, I thought the Phillies were on at 7 o'clock, but that game's in the book. So guess what? We're taking the L. So right now, we're out of the gate. 0 for 1. That's a bad job by me. Why did I think that game was a late pitch tonight in Houston? I can't stand those, let's play on the West Coast slate and then turn around and you have a day game. But alas, there we are, right? That's totally on me. So we are going to take the L on that one. Jay chimed in. Q, what was that story you mentioned on Franco? Jail time. So his 2-year prison sentence is suspended, according to Juan Arturo Riccio. If he fails to meet conditions set by the judge, the main one being he does not approach minors with sexual intentions. Are we kidding here? He will have to serve the sentence. He needs to go to jail. Like, seriously. And then now, if he has no jail time or not, that's kind of BS. But again, like, how are you not in prison? I mean, that's beyond BS. How are you not in prison? Forget about, coming back to play baseball. Are you serious with this nonsense? He's got to be banned. He should be in jail. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This story is absolutely crazy. The mother of the victim was found guilty of sexually trafficking her daughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison, but he's not. That's great reporting, Jeff Passan. He does a very good job reporting on stuff. I mean, yeah, this is not good. Let me get to a couple of comments before we get here. Franchise in Delaware chiming in. Q, I know what you're saying about Tucker. I understand it, but I don't think he wasn't arrested. I don't think he should be suspended, and I don't think he should have been released. You are a Baltimore fan through and through, and guess what? Where there's smoke, there's fire, my friend. Baltimore had to release him. It would have been a PR nightmare. And where there's smoke, like I said, there's fire. He got suspended because he violated the personal conduct policy. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? I mean, that's where we're at. He's a Hall of Fame kicker. He might not kick again in the NFL. So how are we going to look at him when his name pops up? We're talking about Hall of Fame credentials. Hey, have fun with that one, guys. Kevin, we got through you. NBA take. I already read that one. D in Delaware, D in Claymont, pardon me, D in Claymont, not D in Delaware. I'll get to D in Delaware in a second. David in Claymont chimes in. Q, I thought the coverage last night was complete BS with the draft, and you're absolutely right. I can't believe exactly what ESPN has turned into. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but you can say that for a lot of the networks. Now D chiming in. I like the Sixers move, and like you said, Q, and ready to go for playoff times. That's if, right? If this team is, can they compete in the Eastern Conference? Can they be one of those teams where we sit there and say, look, you got George, you got Maxey, you got Edgecombe, you re-signed Grimes, you got Embiid. Can you compete now for that 5th or 6th seed in the Eastern Conference? And without belaboring the point ad nauseum, it really is contingent on the health of Embiid. I mean, if you believe that was the building block, then like I said, that's why they drafted at 3. If they didn't, maybe they turned around and they traded the pick. That's just my mindset. That's just what I believe. You guys might agree with that. You might not agree with it, and it's okay. It's okay. They were not going to trade Joel Embiid. They just weren't, right? They weren't. And I know a lot of people thought they were, but they're not. I mean, I think I'd have to figure out where they're at right now. T chiming in. Q, there's Sixers fans actually saying trade McCain now, please. Never watch the Sixers again. I mean, he's a good player. What do we got here? We got Cuffs. Enjoying the Hoops Talk. Q, just found you on your YouTube channel. Good stuff. The Sixers should have just traded Podcast P and drafted Ace Bally and figure out the rest later. Podcast P. I appreciate the kind words, my friend. And thanks for finding us on the YouTube channel. Yeah, so, you can't have a player come out and make those comments and think you're going to make it work, and then you draft a player, right? So Paul George said what he said. Paul George, I think a lot of Sixers fans would have been very happy and content if they would have traded Paul George last night. But again, that's a albatross of a contract. That's a player that's not the same player that he once was. That's an injured player. That's an inconsistent player. His contract and the way he's perceived in Philadelphia right away just reminds me of Tobias Harris. It's just right away. A lot of money. Where the hell's the production? A lot of money. Where's the production, right? A couple Nets fans chiming in as well, which I will get to in a moment. I told you, guard heavy, man. Guard Q. He loses every single trade, never takes any risk. Yeah, I mean, listen, all those picks, you couldn't move up, right? I mean, that's not good. Greg chimes in, Q, if the Nets turn around and trade Cam Thomas, on God, we aren't fans anymore. Who's with me? B chimes in, the next time a team trades 5 draft picks for some decent third player and non-star, everyone freaks out. It's because of they went so guard heavy, right? They traded Mann in the 22nd pick, and they traded away absolutely nothing. So that's, I think, where people are getting annoyed. Like the Nets used 2 of their first from the Bridges trade to draft international guards. Think about that for a moment. And then the Suns got into the mix and they traded number 36 and the Nets 2 future second round picks. So again, I think I wouldn't be, if I'm a fan of the Nets, I would not be a fan of what they did. Bobby S chimes in, Q, it's just bad business by the Nets. They traded the equivalent of a great second round pick for what will probably amount to 2 bad seconds. Makes 0 sense. It's a great point. It's a great point. You have to know what you're doing come draft night. You really do. Back to basics. Q, you know what would really make the Nets fans happy? Trading Cam Johnson, playing the rookies a ton, developing them top 5 in 2026. Let's do it right this year. What say you, Q? Go for it. I mean, I like Cam Johnson, but I understand what you're saying. Like, play the young kids, get a high draft pick. You're not tanking. You're seeing what they have, especially the international players. Get them acclimated to the NBA game. Win some games, get a little buzz, create a little buzz and juice with the fan base, and then go from there. I'd have to look at the free agents, the crop, right? But again, I'm not a fan. Some people don't like the Sixers move. Some people look at some of these moves and they're saying, does it fit? Does it fit? Does it fit? Right? Do you like how Ace Bailey played the situation? Go Rutgers. No, I didn't, Michael. I didn't at all. I think this kid, man, and I'm going to get hammered for saying this. There's a lot of red flags with this kid, and he's young. This kid is 18 years old. He's a kid. But man, you got to sound magnanimous. You got to be humble, and you have to learn to play the game, and you got to have some street smarts. And I think he misplayed his hand here. I don't know if there was any perfect scenario in his mind. I think this is the kid that wants his shots. He wants his stats. He's going to go to a franchise in Utah, different market, maybe not a lot of pressure. Maybe he averages 18 to 22, and maybe they never make any noise in the Western Conference. So would I have been mad if the Sixers drafted this kid at number 3? I wouldn't. I'm not mad that any team drafted the kid. I don't like the way the kid handled it. Whether he got some bad advice, skipping pre-draft workouts, I think that's a telltale sign. His comments afterwards, which, again, read the room, my man, right? You can't have a preferred destination. You can't dictate. When you start to dictate, it's never good. It's never good. Even in the NFL, when you dictate as a quarterback, you better win. You know what Eli did? He won 2 Super Bowls. You know what Elway did? Eventually, he was able to win Super Bowls. And listen, Utah's not trading this kid. They're not. They're going to keep him. They basically came out. They like his upside. This kid, he's an explosive shot maker. He's one of the talented kids in the draft. But again, man, you got to handle yourself a certain way before the draft. He basically tried to steer his way to Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn. And that New York market would have ate him up. They would have. And the Jazz were not on his preferred list. And they drafted him anyway because, like I said, Ainge's kid already saw him. They scouted him out when he was with Boston. He's a good player, but I think sometimes there are some red flags. That's all I'm saying. Second highest odds to be Rookie of the Year behind Flag. Yeah, because he's probably going to light the world on fire and get a lot of points. Right? I mean, Cooper Flag going last night, number one, you had to lay $1,000 to win $1. Right? So it's listen, I hope the kid pans out. He's going to have a bullseye on his back. This ain't Rutgers, man. This ain't Rutgers. So the 17-7, the average in Rutgers, you do 18-8 in the NBA, you're on to something. And we'll see how this kid takes to the NBA game. And young, mature, that's all you can ask for. It's a bold, bold move by Austin Ainge. It really is. I mean, it's a roll of the dice that if you get this kid to buy in, then you can sit there and say maybe in a couple of years, man, they got a diamond in the rough. They got a gem. They got the best player coming out of the draft, not named Cooper Flag, even though other people think if Flag doesn't come out and he's number one, it's going to be Harper. All right, got to start wrapping up on a Thursday. Excellent stuff with the comments. Sorry if I missed you guys on X. You can keep follow along as well. Harper, I like Harper. And we'll close it out with Michael's last comment. I like Dylan Harper. I think he's a player, man. I really do. I think it's a good fit for San Antonio. I know people have agreed with me. Sometimes you're making moves around certain players and you're rebuilding. And I love the kid in college. He's a flat out player. And you can see, the way he carries himself, with his family there last night, his mom and dad, obviously, and his mom kind of pushed him with the basketball and coached him up. But I think the kid's going to be a flat out player. Those were two very good players in college, 100%. It's going to be interesting to see how everything kind of plays out. You got day 2 tonight. We gave the Q-Fecta. I already told you the Phils lost to the Astros 2-1. Tomorrow, a lot more NFL, a little more baseball. John Bueller from Fansided is going to join us as well. We'll keep going around the NFL. We'll start to dip into a little college football. Good stuff with Costco today on the SEC. We'll put that up as well on X. Lloyd Vance joined us in the 5 o'clock hour. Always appreciate him. Don't forget, it's pretty easy. Follow along. IGX at Rich Q on Q, on TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. And also, we encourage you guys to keep TriX57 in your URL. Keep that as a favorite, TriX57.com. Follow them on Facebook, on X. Facebook, they got a ton of growth, the eyeballs, the reach, the views. They give you local news, weather, and, of course, sports. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the TriX57 Sports Flash and back in the saddle from 4 to 6 right here on Middays with Q. Again, appreciate Nick Costco for jumping on board, Lloyd Vance, all the great eyeballs with the commenters and you guys on Facebook, on X, and of course on the YouTube channel. Have a wonderful Sports Thursday. You got day 2 of the draft. You got a little MLB. You got a little WNBA. The picks are out as well. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a What the Frig Friday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm Rich Quiñones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.